So today we are doing a Robinhood review. Now I'm actually showing you here in real time my Robinhood account. So we're going to talk about the pros and some of the disadvantages I would say that this brokerage account might have compared to others. And I actually want to show this in real time so you can actually understand that I'm using this product if I'm either recommending it or thinking that it might be the one for you, because depending on the features we talk about here today and some of the disadvantages, this might not be the right one for you. So this is why I wanted to do it in this fashion. Now, as we go through this, if you want to sign up, the link, of course, will be in the show notes or a QR code above me. It gets you a free stock, helps me out. I get to keep making free content here on YouTube for you. So just something to keep in mind. And I want to show you how much I actually like Robinhood to the point where I even have some of the shares on here. Right over here, you can see I actually own Robinhood shares, about 100 of it. So effectively, I want to put my money where my mouth is and not just talk about how much I like the company, but actually invest in the company. But again, we're going to talk about some of the opportunities that they have as well too. Now, not only do I have a regular investing account, as you can see here with Robinhood, I also do have my retirement account in this platform as well. Now, the biggest thing I want to note is that if a company starts going sideways or starts doing really bad things for their clients, I am one person that will just immediately bounce out. I'm not going to stay beholden to one company just because I started investing with them. So if things change in the future, I'll make updated videos, updated reviews to really understand, is this going to be the right platform at this point? But as of right now, first and foremost, I would say yes. I think Robinhood is one of the better when it comes to investing apps. And then they do also have a web browser as well available for you. And they do have what they call the Robinhood Legend, which is actually going to go even deeper if you want to get really big into investing. But as far as like maybe either getting started or a little bit in the intermediate side of investing, I think Robinhood does tick a lot of boxes off, but there are some cautionary things I have experienced with Robinhood that I have since then mitigated because of the different settings I can do. Now, when it comes to actually just being able to buy shares in companies and sell shares, it's so fluid. It's so easy. Now, this is not, of course, any kind of recommendation with SoFi or any of the stocks I go into today. But as far as being able to buy, I just clicked into the company that I either own or want to search for. I can just go ahead down here and click on trade, and then I can go ahead and purchase. I can also sell. I can also do trade options. So if you want to get even further into investing, they do have that. Now, that's actually probably, I would say, one of the biggest downsides for a lot of beginner investors or somebody who's just kind of getting into investing is trade options can start getting a little overwhelming pretty quickly for a lot of people. And it's a little easy to make a lot of mistakes, even with some of the barriers that Robinhood does put up. And what's really nice is they'll give you a little bit of a breakdown of what you're trying to do, even if you're a little bit more aware of the process. But nonetheless, if you find yourself in a position, you can kind of lose quite a bit more than maybe you were intending to, if you were, actually willing to lose that money. But just something to keep in mind, because investing is risk. So you got to take that into account. But as far as just going through, if we click on buy over here, it gives you so many different options on the top right. It gives you options for buying in dollars, which is fractional shares, one of my favorite features for anything. And I think Robinhood really brought that to the forefront. I know other companies, I use M1 Finance as well. So I actually have used multiple brokerage accounts for different reasons, mainly because of this channel, but also just because of my personal preferences. But they also allow you to do recurring investments, which is great for people who are maybe not as good at keeping consistently on the app. So you could just set yourself up for success that way. You can also do limit orders, and you can see where it says trade now in like different colors. That actually allows you to trade in what they started at 24/5 market. Huge option to be able to start buying even at nighttime when you're maybe not available to purchase during market hours. And you can see all the different types of condition orders that you can actually go ahead and do, which is really nice. Gives you tons of options. Now, a lot of brokerages have this as well too. But what I really like about, going on Robinhood, if you're just like, hey, what is trail stop order right over here? It kind of gives you a little bit of a breakdown. Let's just go ahead and say you do this, for example. Plug in some numbers and you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm just going to go ahead and click these things. So you click on review, but this right over here, this order summary is what I really like. And again, it's very simplistic, but for a lot of people that maybe don't know exactly what they're like stepping into, this gives you a little bit more of a breakdown, kind of gives you a quick synopsis of what you're trying to accomplish here. So that is really nice and helpful. And I really like that from that perspective. One of the biggest downsides, I would say, when it comes to Robinhood right now, at least for me, and this is the part where like the settings I went ahead and changed, is you could technically go in here and you can customize when you get notifications for different stocks. But as a whole, they actually have settings where they'll like inform you like, hey, Robinhood is down, 20% this week, or SoFi is down 10%. And that can give you a little bit of anxiety, either direction, honestly. If it goes up 15%, you feel like you missed out, or if it goes down. Now, this one is a custom one up here, but it can do it for just the shares that you have. You can mitigate that with notifications in your settings page, but still, it's a little bit like, having to be in it all the time, especially if you're somebody that just wants to put money in and not pay a lot of attention. That's going to be something you definitely would want to go and change. But if you're somebody who likes getting those notifications, you can do it so specifically to a stock. Like if we go back in here, you can see here saying, hey, if the price moves above a certain dollar amount, you can go ahead and do that. You can also add other alerts as well too. So it is really nice depending on how you want to go about it. So I like when you have customization, because if there was no way to stop those notifications about, a 10% swing in one direction, that would be a lot more difficult to kind of work with. Now, Robinhood as a whole is basically free. There's no cost for you to be able to go through and be buying stocks and selling stocks. Now, there might be fees when it comes to going through that process from regulatory fees, but as far as anything that comes from a cost, just the basic version of investing has no cost. Now, they do have what they call a Robinhood Gold. Now, Gold is essentially a paid subscription. You can pay for that either on a monthly or annual basis, and you get a bunch of other benefits. I actually have a whole separate video talking about the Gold review, because that is a whole separate video, but they do have the option. So just as a heads up, you do not have to pay for this, but there are some really great pros on that side of things, especially for either the deposits for retirement, if you wanted to do that, or the high APY that they offer. You can see some of the other features here as well too. The contributions towards your retirement account, additional margin if you want to get into that, but again, that's really something just depending on each person individually. And if you pay for the year, it's a little bit cheaper than if you go with the month-to-month basis. Now, one thing I also do really like is that there's a lot that's maybe moving in your account, especially if you have multiple shares and different holdings that you have. On the top right, you see the little bell icon. If you are inside of the app and you click here, it will show you all the notifications, even if you do have it hidden from your phone to be, popping up every 5 minutes. So you could see all the different things, whether it's a company that's paying out a dividend, whether you ended up completing a purchase or a sale, maybe some heads up of a new company coming out, like an IPO. All of these different things, you're going to have the option to come in here and click on whichever one, and it'll take you kind of to that segment to be able to go ahead and make sure that all went through for you. So like, for example, here with our Vanguard, we did a purchase, and you can see right over here, it let us know. And then what's nice is that there's kind of almost like a little message board that you can click on if you need a little bit more information, because maybe not everybody is up to par on everything 100%. So you get a little bit of a learning opportunity as you move through this, which I personally love. And then you can also see here, you even have the option, if you did click on the notification, to be like, you know what, I want to buy more. You can even do that as well in the little notifications. I think that's fantastic. It's a really cool way to go about it, to be able to make sure that you are, again, constantly learning. Now, they do have something called instant deposit, because transferring from your bank or card over to Robinhood can take a couple of days to go through. So depending on the base version or the gold version you might have of Robinhood, you'll have access to a certain dollar amount, typically starting at 1,000 and can go up from there. And what this really means is, instead of having to wait a couple days for that money to transfer over, you can have instant access to that money to go ahead and invest with. So if you transfer over $500, that money is pretty much already in your account, ready to go in and invest, especially if you wanted to be buying that day. Now, we talked earlier about recurring investments, and I think this is fantastic for somebody who maybe isn't inside of investing apps every single day like myself. So if you can set yourself up for success, Robinhood does a really good job with that. Now, I cannot recommend any kind of investing app, especially for beginners, if they do not have dividends available for reinvesting. Now, this is sometimes known as DRIP, a dividend reinvesting program. And this is so vital to having a great success for the long term, whether you're in a retirement account or you're in an individual account. If you want those dividends that get paid out from companies, it goes into your holdings. Now, the way dividends work, and just in case you're not familiar, is dividends get paid out from companies. So as you're holding a stock, it might pay out a certain amount of money, and that money goes into your buying power. Now, if you don't have dividends reinvested, it just sits there and you have to make sure you go in and do any kind of purchase. But dividend reinvesting says, hey, we'll just go ahead and rebuy more of that company if you would like to. So as that example, I'm going to click on dividend reinvesting here, and I can have this toggled on and say, hey, when Apple pays out a dividend, which they do, I will want that money to go back in and buy more shares of that particular company. And that dividend compounding is so powerful, especially if you're not paying attention on a daily basis. That money works right away for you. And it's so great for anybody that wants to have their money going back into the market. Now, this also works in your retirement account. So that way you can have that money going again right back in. And it's not just sitting in your buying power doing nothing if you are somebody, again, that's not inside of the app on a daily basis. Now, I took you inside of the back end with my retirement account just so I can show you what this would look like, whether, again, it's in the brokerage version or the retirement version. So you can see here, they announced the dividend. That dividend paid out, it's a fund right here. You can see it's VOOG is the name of the fund. We had 347 shares at the time, and it paid out 54 cents and it paid out 0.5475 shares, which equaled out to $190.34. And because we wanted to reinvest it, we bought 0.56 shares of that holding. So almost another half, a little over half of another share, because we just had that money go right back into that. It's a very powerful thing, and it's a great way to stay automated when it comes to your investing. Now, they also have an option for stock lending. It's a little bit more nuanced, so if you want to go ahead and read more about it, but essentially you are allowing your funds to be able to be loaned out. You get a little bit of money on the back end of that as well too, but you still maintain ownership. Again, you can learn more about it if you want to have it toggled on or off, your choice, which is always a great thing as well too, and you can earn a little bit of extra money. Now, they do also have multiple levels of option trading as well as the account type. So whether you want to do margin or stay away from margin, you can choose those things. It's definitely something you want to consider when it comes to what type of account you have and your experience with investing as well too. Again, this is maybe one of the parts with Robinhood that I would like maybe a little bit more of a barrier to entry, so to speak, where if somebody's getting into, let's say, margin trading, I would want to be a little bit more of a step-by-step process rather than just a quick button to go ahead and have access to. But again, nonetheless, it's up to each person individually on what they want to do. But if there was a little bit more of a barrier, I think it would be a little bit easier for people not to slip into ways of investing that maybe they're not ready for. Now, if you're into buying cryptocurrency, they do also have a segment for this as well too. It's actually its own different tab that you can go into. So you can see your cryptocurrency. You can also even be buying and trading, of course, with those. And you can also even send or receive as well with a wallet. Now, Robinhood also does have a money section as well too. So if you want to go ahead and keep some money on the account as well and spend it through a debit card, you could do that. They also now are rolling more and more out with their Robinhood credit card, which gives you 3% back on any purchase that you make. And of course, right now, as of this recording, it's still a wait list to be able to get on. So just something to keep in mind, but you can essentially be having most of your finances almost in one place if you really wanted to. Now, you could also have direct deposit right into your Robinhood account. So if you want your paychecks to either go partially into Robinhood or the full amount here, you can start using your debit card to make your purchases with your regular bills. Or again, you can get the credit card as well if you wanted to have additional features and functionalities. Now, because I have the Robinhood Gold, they also do have what they call their cash sweep program. And you can see for us, it's enabled. And what this does is any money that's just sitting in the account in the buying power, not being utilized at that given time, excluding the retirement side of things, you can see we can earn right now a 4% APY, which is actually some of the highest that we can get from any type of high yield savings account. And this is not even a savings account. It's just an account that's holding our money in here. Now you can see the amount of cash that is earning interest right over here, the amount of accrued interest thus far for that given month, and the lifetime earnings for your account overall from prior months and prior years as well. So on Robinhood, you can also create lists. So you can have a watch list. You could also create different types of screeners as well too. So you can have a different group if you wanted to. So for example, here we have just our watch list. You can have an options watch list, anything that's in the 24-hour markets. You can maybe put a bunch of different fast food companies together in one list so you can have them all together. So you can have different types of lists however you see fit. Now, Robinhood is always coming out with new features and functionalities, and one of the most recent ones is the realized profit and loss. So this is a little bit easier for you if you're wanting to be a little bit more detail oriented with your actual investments. So it's always a really nice thing to see them and innovating in those ways. And then also one thing to keep in mind too is you can have a joint account. So if you have a partner or a spouse that you want to add onto your account, you can do that now with your joint account. So I would also say that for me, one of the biggest cons when it comes to utilizing Robinhood right now, and it seems to have been going on for quite some time, is when I come down here into a specific stock, you can scroll down and you can actually get more information about the company, which is great. Right? So you can go down here and you can see like the volume, you can see the open, the market cap. For some reason, some of this information just seems to be quite delayed, especially with the PE ratios. So a lot of this information I tend to still get from other sources, usually from like Seeking Alpha or other websites. But just something to kind of keep in mind when it comes to that. But it is still really nice to get a lot of other things like the news from here. You can also set up your recurring from individual shares of companies that you have by itself instead of going through the overall recurring settings. So just kind of just different information pieces that are in here that I would have liked to maybe see a little bit more updated on a regular basis, but nonetheless, I'm still getting my information from other sources. Now, they also do have this little like picture-in-picture window here, which I mean, it's great that it's there, but for example, like I'll just go like this and then go into other parts of the app. I don't know how valuable that is for most investors. So for me, it feels like it just takes up a little bit more space than I would probably need to over here. But again, it's not something I have to utilize. So It's not as big of a deal, but just kind of something to keep in mind there. Now, as far as the charts go, you can see this is a very basic chart of the actual SoFi for this example. If you click this little arrow, like two-sided arrow right over here, this is where you get into a lot more detailed charting for you. So that way, if you're wanting to kind of dig in quite a bit deeper when it comes to like the moving averages and filtering out through different things as well too. Again, what's nice is that it's available for people if they choose to go through that, but if not, you still get the most basic version of your chart with the individual company. And if you by chance have Robinhood Gold, you'll see this little arrow over here by the dollar amount for any individual holding that you have. And if you click on here, it goes into what they call level 2 market data. So just something to consider. Now, from this page, from the individual holding that we have, if we keep on scrolling down past all of the news, there is the analysis rating right over here. You can also see the trading trends as well. And then if you keep going down, you'll see the research report. This is for gold members. It's just a little bit of additional information. You can see the earnings report. Again, this is actually pretty nice as well. And then you can also see their shareholders Q&A. And then right over here, you can see some related list and then what other people also own when they own this particular company. I wouldn't say this is probably my favorite feature either, just because sometimes there are reasons why maybe it's not always the best idea to follow along with other investors, especially if you're not doing your own due diligence. And it's good to just be aware of, if people are holding SoFi, they're also holding, other companies or looking into these other companies. And so that's not inherently bad, but I think especially for more of a beginner investor, it might be a little bit of a cautionary thing to be coming down here and seeing these opportunities that may or may not work out for you based off of your investing style, your risk tolerance, and all those other things combined. But it is there. There is no way for me to remove that. I don't really care for this personally myself. I do like this part over here where it's a related list. So you can see, it's a California-based company, it's a software, it's banking. If it has upcoming earnings, like these filters I do personally like. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of say, hey, I want to see what other companies are from California or whatever state or, other software companies as well too, and kind of compare a lot more, where this is not necessarily a comparison. It even says over here, it is not a recommendation. So just definitely something to keep in mind if you decide to go with Robinhood. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you decide you want to go ahead and get started with Robinhood, I'll have a link for you in the show notes down below or the QR code above me. That will get you a nice free stock for going through that process and signing up, as well as help us out to continue to make free content. Now, if you want to dig in a little bit deeper when it comes to utilizing Robinhood and actually want to see our breakdown of Robinhood Gold, we got you covered. Check out that video right over here on screen to learn more about it.